What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for coming back and joining me for season 4 of the Coventry City rebuild. If you've been with us so far across this journey, you would have seen in the previous episode we managed to get ourselves promoted back to the Premier League. Yes, Coventry City are now back in the big time, and that means that today we are pushing forwards to the 1st of June 2026, and we have now completed the 4th season. Now, we've got a lot to get through as usual, so let's start and kick things off by showing you all the transfer activity that happened in the build-up to season 4. In preparation for our first season back in the Premier League since 2001, we were heavily involved in the transfer market. Now, I was willing to give some of my championship winning team a chance in the Premier League, but there were one or two players that we needed to move on, and also there were some upgrades that we needed in certain positions. So we set about going to work, and the first part of the transfer window, the first player that we allowed to leave the club was Jonathan Gomez. He's left back, right back. He was playing as either. Ended up moving to Bournemouth. We cashed in our chips. He was the young American that we bought early on. Sold him to Bournemouth for 8.75 million, so not a bad return on the money there. We then sold Jay McGrath. Allowed him to go to Salford. He was only a fringe player anyway who wasn't going to make the grade. And then Harrison Ashby, the former West Ham player that we bought in. Again, another one not really going to make the grade, so we took the cash there. In the first part of the transfer window where we could sign players, the first player that we signed was Ben Woodburn. Now, obviously not the big standout star that you would think that you should go and try and buy, but the way I wanted to do this was try and work within the wage budget. I don't want to start all of a sudden signing players, put them on 50 grand a week and trying to run the club into the ground somewhat. It would have been difficult if we would have just spent all the transfer money on one or two players when we really needed a squad. So knowing he had a big club or two experience in the past, he is at Preston in the game. But considering the money that we paid, I think it could turn out to be a bit of a bargain. £1.4 million we paid for him at the time. Obviously, what happens in the future is something different. But the next player we signed was a big one for the club. It is Rooney Bargy. Now, just as I was saying, I don't really want to go out and spend loads of money on players and buy the wrong type of players. This is very much a player that I was willing to invest £10 million in. Obviously, £42,500 is wages, but it will be an absolute bargain in the future because he's an absolute worldie of a wonder kid, and I was actually surprised that he wanted to come to Coventry. Next up, we improved our goalkeeping ranks. Christian Joel Sanchez, he came to the club. Obviously, in the Championship, you could get away with a goalkeeper that maybe isn't of the greatest standard as long as you've got a good defence. We needed an upgrade at goalkeeper, so that was the first player that we bought in the position. We then went and signed Ezequiel Fernandez. He is a 23-year-old Argentinian, can play through the middle. Obviously, you can see the exact reasons why we signed him. Great passing, determination, good pace, good acceleration. Player who can get up and down the pitch and will be box to boxing. We signed Hugo Di Matteo. He is a player who has come to us to be a second striker, basically, a bit of a rotation option, a cheaper option. 21 years old. £6,500 investment in terms of the wages. I think he has the ability to go on and become a good player. We then went back to Brazil. We signed Kawa Elias. He is currently out on loan at Leyton Orient. Very much one for the future. A left winger who can cut in and also play as a makeshift striker. You can see here his progression across the season isn't very good, but I presume some of that is to do with the fact he's away from the club, and overall he should get better as the game goes on. We then, as cover at left back, went and signed Yuta Nakayama. A cheap option, really. Didn't want somebody who was going to put in massive wage demands, but you could see already he isn't going to make the cut, so when we flip the page, you might see that name once again. We signed Max Lowe as a left back, again, a player who fits the bill. £10,750 in terms of the wages isn't going to bust the bank. He has decent attributes for a left-sided defender, which is exactly what you want. 29 years old, has played for Sheffield United, so we know he's experienced enough. We then went back to Brazil, to Cruzeiro, and we signed Zé Ivaldo. He is a 29-year-old defender. He is tall, he is quick, he is physical. He's everything that you need in a Premier League defender, and I think we might have got a bit of a bargain in him. 29 years old, he probably won't get any better, but he certainly will be of the standard that we need to get us started in the Premier League. And then we went back to Brazil once more. He didn't stay the course. Obviously, you could see already that we brought him in and he has moved on. But we did sign Calabe. He is a central midfielder who can play in a variety of roles. We signed him on a scouting report and he basically became unhappy as soon as he walked through the doors at the club. So on to the second part of the transfer window then, and we continued to sell players. We let Jamie Bowden leave to go to Parma on a free. Adam Randall left to go to Reading on a free. Michael Rosiak went to Araco for 300,000. Johan Puig didn't really make the cut, went to Albacete for 425,000. Josh Reed went to Queen's Park for 150,000. Fabio Tavares, who we had high hopes for at the start of the game, didn't make the cut as the players were coming in and the standard was getting better. He just didn't make the cut. 195,000 to Wigan. Josh Nichols went out on loan to Northampton. Lee Harkin went to Morecambe. Riley Siddle went to Accrington. Elliot Benjamin went to Barrow on loan. Blaine Rowe to Eastleigh. And then we had a hell of a lot of loans. Let's just rattle through these. Johnny Emerson, James Bayliss, Harrison Dudziak, Isaac Abdul-Razak, Cole McKinnon, Samuel Dobson, Luke Plange. Julimar ended up going out on loan. He did become disillusioned at the club quite quickly once it became apparent he wasn't going to be a first teamer anymore. Kamani Ryan, Jack Hinchy, Leandrinho was the next big departure. He left to go to Astana. We picked up a fair amount of money for him. Didn't really want to let him go. I did think that he had a future at the club, but as soon as you see some of the players that we signed, you can see the reasons why he was kind of edged out the team and maybe felt like his time at the club was coming to an end. We let Alex Robertson go to Familiaco for 165,000. Cornes, Kem Campbell, Lee Jones, Luke McCormack, Matty Longstaff, and then Kao Elias, who's just come in, joining Marco Russ out on loan. Various different clubs there: Sunderland, Bolton, Carlisle. Finazaz ended up leaving the club to go on a free to Chesterfield. Bit of a strange one. He had a bit of a fit that he wasn't a first teamer anymore, despite the fact that we have signed quite a few decent players. Couldn't understand that we wanted him to be a squad rotation option. Instead, he decided to ask for a move. He got his big move to Chesterfield. Leighton Clarkson went on loan to Huddersfield. Reece Russell Denny went on loan to Bristol Rovers. Ishmael Kabaya went on loan to Accrington. Peter Andrade, who is going to be a big star if he continues his rise. Let's just show you him pretty quickly. May not seem that he's all that, but as a 19-year-old regen who's valued at 19 to 27 million pounds, there is obviously something there. As I said then, Calabe went to FC Copenhagen for 6.25 million. Adam Berry went to Bristol Rovers on loan. Lewis Orford ended up going to Millwall for £700,000. Wasn't going to make the cut. And Harrison McMahon went to Swindon on loan. So that's all the players that have departed. Obviously, I was saying that we need to build the squad up and we've let a lot of players go. But we were active in the second part of the transfer market ourselves. The first player is not a stat. The first player is Jung Sang Bin. He's a striker who comes with quite a big reputation. Obviously, Korean national, has played for Grasshoppers, Middlesbrough, Wolverhampton Wanderers he was at, and we managed to go and pick him up for quite cheap. How much did we pay for him? Free. A free transfer signing from Wolves, and that is a bargain in my eyes. 24 years old. Has everything that we're going to need for the Premier League, I think. 13 finishing, 15 pace, 16 acceleration. I think this is a bargain for a free transfer. We then signed Tommy Doyle on a free transfer also. Comes to us from Sheffield United. Has been around the block a little bit. Played for Hamburg, Cardiff, Manchester City before joining us. He's estimated to cost 20 to 25 million pounds. So I was actually surprised that he came to us on a free transfer. Maybe he's one to keep. Maybe he's one to move on. We'll find out as the season goes. We went and signed Alan Franco. He is a 27-year-old Ecuadorian who plays in the middle of the park, and another one with great passing, off the ball, vision, work rate, teamwork, agility, stamina, pace and acceleration, all there. And I think, again, one with a checkered career path. Atletico Mineiro, Charlotte FC, Talleres in Argentina, Atletico Mineiro, and then finally landing in England to play for good old Coventry. The next player up was James Garner, another free transfer, and this one is a bit of a bargain. Obviously, he's a player that was playing for Manchester United, has then moved to Everton. In the game, didn't really make the cut at Everton, and that's how we ended up picking him up on a free transfer. I think he's one that is going to raise the standards of our midfielders all throughout the game. We then signed Felix Ballas, the first of the regens. Yes, we are at that stage now where we are picking up 19-year-old regens who have come from Ipswich. The next player, Rodrigo Cesar, went back to Brazil. This kid looks like he's about 12, but he's actually 19. He has everything, I think, that we're going to need for a future star. He is quick, with 13 pace, 13 acceleration, dribbling of 12, first touch of 12, heading of 15, which is strange for a player of 5'7". His jumping reach is 7, obviously not matching his heading, but technique is good. He has good determination at 15, decisions of 14. I think he's going to be a bit of a bargain player, and if it doesn't work out for us at Coventry, then maybe we could move him on for a lot more money than we paid for him. 1.6 million was the deal to get him over the line. The next player is Lorenzo Riccio. You might sense a theme coming here. We are signing young, fresh talent that are looking to either progress with the club or we are going to move them on for big money down the line. Obviously, we're going to try and limit this to 5 seasons. Don't know if we're going to stick with it for maybe a 6th one. I am very, very tempted because this save really is just a challenge in itself to constantly have to regenerate the team and argue with the board, the takeovers and everything. It's really an enjoyable save, so might stretch it out a bit and you might see that kid down the line. And the final player to come in this season is Juan Cáceres. He is a right back. He is from Paraguay, I think that is. Yes, from Paraguay, 26 years old, and he's just basically going to be a player that is a right-sided player, can bomb up and down the pitch. Pace of 11 and acceleration of 12 maybe aren't going to cut it in the Premier League long term, but certainly in the short term, I think he has the experience to be a great Premier League player. So looking overall then, certainly in that second part of the season, we only spent £9 million there. We recouped 14.75. So after the outlay on players and the turnaround in playing staff, it seems it was all worth it, with our first season back in the Premier League since 2001, resulting in an 11th place finish. We played 38 games and finished on 48 points. We will break the Premier League season down in a minute. But looking across the other competitions, disappointingly, we were knocked out in the 3rd round of the FA Cup by Birmingham City. We were knocked out in the 2nd round of the Carabao Cup by Sheffield United. So we did finish in 11th place, 48 points, 64 was what we needed to get into the European places, but that sounds crazy. The most important thing was how far away we were from the relegation zone, and you can see that we actually finished 16 points clear of Leicester, who got relegated. But before we look at our Premier League campaign in just a bit more detail, we have a few other things to get through first. The first of which is going to be the finances. So you can see that at this point, the club now has a balance of £56.8 million in the bank. And they are willing to let us spend for season 5, £39.4 million. We have a wage budget of £945,000 and we are spending £852,000. So that means going into season 5, we're going to be able to invest in the playing squad and hopefully improve on that 11th place finish. Looking at the club vision page then, our job security is secure. You can see our actionable objectives are to work within the wage budget. We are on course for that, obviously. Just showing you we have quite a lot of capital for wages. In terms of the 5-year plan, next season they want to attempt to avoid relegation from the Premier League and our contract is up for renewal. So it obviously depends on us becoming a fully fledged Premier League team across many seasons rather than just having one season back in the league as to whether that contract gets renewed. So hopefully we're going to invest heavily in the playing staff and make that a reality. Looking at the board then, the board feedback from Liam McMahon, who is our chairperson, it says, to summarise, the board are very pleased with your overall leadership of the team. Last season's successes remain fresh in our memories and our appraisal of your current performance takes that into account. So the board culture now, they want to play possession football, play entertaining football and play high tempo pressing football. So they are pleased with both the entertaining and the high tempo and they're satisfied with us playing possession possession football. Not too sure how we do that in the Premier League, where we are pretty much a passive team and have to rely on counter-attacking most of the time, but hey-ho, we're going to try and hit that as we go into Season 5 and are developing the playing staff. Notable highlights from the board: pleased with the 2-2 draw against Tottenham, pleased with the positive atmosphere in the changing room. They are fairly happy with the number of goals we have scored of late. They were disappointed about a 7-0 defeat against Man City. Yes, that is the reality of being back in the Premier League. And they were disappointed about losing 3-1 to Brighton. If we go to the supporters, let's have a little look at that. They give us a B as well. Overall, the supporters are pleased with the job we are doing. They too want us to play possession football, play entertaining football, and play high-tempo pressing football. And matching the board, they are happy with the entertaining football and high-tempo football, and they want us to... or they're just satisfied with playing possession football. The supporter expectations for the upcoming season: they want us to attempt to avoid relegation from the Premier League. Notable highlights for them: 2-2 draw with Tottenham, 2-2 draw with Leicester. Fairly happy with the number of goals we've scored. Very disappointed about that 7-0 defeat against Man City. Disappointed with Gustavo Heimer's performances recently, and very disappointed with Alan Franco's recent performances too. Let's go back then and break down that memorable first season back in the Premier League in a bit more detail. If we go into the stages and have a little look at how we have got on. So we finished in 11th place, which is very respectable, almost smack bang in the middle of the table. Played 38 games. We had 13 wins, most notably home and away against Bristol City, home and away against Wolves, beat West Ham, Everton, Aston Villa, Fulham to go with it. We had 9 draws, notably drawing with both Tottenham home and away and Leeds home and away. We did get a draw with Manchester City 2-2, but obviously when we move across to the next column, you can see that the away game, when we went to Manchester City, we got spanked 7-0. We lost to Liverpool 5-1, and losing 16 games is probably not the best. Across the season, we scored 56 goals. We did concede 70. We had a goal difference of -14, which obviously shows that the defence and the goalkeeper might need upgrading. It's one of those things where also when you're playing against teams that include Erling Haaland, Mohamed Salah and Darwin Núñez, you're going to have problems defensively. We did get 48 points though. That was only a point behind Wolves above us. We finished 5 points behind Aston Villa. Finished quite a way off of the European places, but as I said earlier on, to even think we were that close to Europe is crazy, considering that the board thought we would be in and around here. I mean, Bristol City only getting 15 points, Burnley only getting 18 points, and Leicester did put up a good fight, getting 32. If we go back to the profile page then, let's hit the goals tab and see, did we have anybody who was on that page? So Laurent Tolage was our top scorer across the season in the Premier League. He managed to get himself 13 goals. In the average ratings, our top player isn't even in the top 20. If we go to assists, where are our goals coming from? Ezekiel Fernandez in the middle of the pitch with 8 assists was our top assister. If we go to player of the match awards, Erling Haaland dominating that category, leading the way. We didn't have anybody there. Clean sheets, don't think our goalkeeper would have kept many. Christian Joel Sanchez keeping 5 clean sheets. Yellow cards, this was a bit of a problem for us with Gustavo Heimer and Zé Ivaldo both getting 15 yellow cards each. Discipline, obviously a thing in the Premier League that we are struggling with. Distance covered per 90 minutes, we don't have a player there. Tackles per 90 minutes, we don't have a player there. And dribbles per 90 minutes, we don't have a player there either. So, pretty impressive for a first season back in the Premier League. It's a building block, something that we are surely going to be able to build upon. We do have that transfer kitty to go out and spend some money. So hopefully next season we are going to be stepping up the table and looking up rather than down. To finish off Season 4 then, we're going to look to the future and show you where the squad is at the end of Season 4 and how we can improve going into Season 5. 2 versions of the best 11 as always. The first one is the one that shows us our strengths and our weaknesses, but let's focus on the team first. So we have Sanchez in goal, Flynn at left back, Zé Ivaldo, Watts and Caceres as a right back. We have Heimer, Garner and Doyle as our midfielders, Kevin Zeffy on the left, Bargy on the right and Tolage up top. So we do have quite a big transfer kitty going into Season 5. On paper, this is a really good squad. However, we are going to need to upgrade again, I think. Zayvaldo struggling with the Premier League in terms of his discipline. Caceres likewise. Sanchez I'm not convinced about as a goalkeeper. Might have to upgrade him. Hamer has come along for the ride and he's proven himself at Premier League level. Garner and Doyle forming a partnership in the middle. I think there is an upgrade to be had there. Zeffy on the left is sound. He's kind of a quiet wonder kid, and Rooney Bargy obviously is a wonder kid. Talaj is scoring goals up top, but I do think we need a little bit of extra punch, so it might be that we go out and buy another striker. Looking at some of our strengths: punching tendency for the goalkeeper, wage budget, youth prospects, defence depth, defence in general. It says Kellen Watts is very good at centre back. He's also good at left back. Gustavo Hamer is a good option in the defensive midfield position. Weaknesses though: strength, positioning, bravery, one-on-ones, off the ball, handling for goalkeepers, work rate, pace. So a few areas that we might be able to have a look at in terms of upgrades with that money. If we look at the best 11 in terms of Matt Wells, who is our assistant manager, we now have Sanchez as the goalkeeper, Lowe at left back, De Winter, Watts and Ortega. We have Hamer, Fernandez and Doyle, Zeffy, Bargy and Laurent Talaj up top. In terms of the youngsters coming through, we have Reynolds, Bayliss, Alistair, Dobson, Brody Hughes on the right, Riccio, Quashie, Maitland, Winlock, Isaac Moore and Andrade, who I showed you when we were loaning him out in the middle of the park. The other player to show you who's progressing very nicely is Stephen Maitland. He has made first team appearances at the club already and he's developing his game nicely. So overall, it's been a fantastic season, the first one back in the Premier League since 2001. I think in terms of the future, we're going to have to upgrade in certain areas again if we're going to progress up the table. Not too sure the type of player that I'm actually going to look for, if I'm too honest, but it's one of them where I suppose now we are just looking for quality over quantity, and maybe a complete overhaul is out of the question, and we're just going to start to add that little bit of quality to the team as we need it. Right then, I'm going to start to finish this one off. If you're at this point of the video and you're still listening to me, firstly a big thank you. I really have appreciated all of the people that have supported the channel across the past couple of weeks. All your support is fantastic. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't hit that like and subscribe button already, please don't forget to do it. Also, whilst you're here, don't forget to check out the channel for tactics, wonder kids, tips, let's plays, something for everybody right here on the channel. But for this one, I'm going to leave it there. Come back and join me on another episode of the Coventry City Rebuild soon.